Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be looking at creating notifications or toasts they're generally referred to. We're going to be using the contact form example from last time. The GitHub repository has the toast starter branch which you can clone and follow along with the project. So basically we're gonna do it on the contact form because we have it, and some of you might have followed this already. And basically when we submit the form at the moment, nothing really happens. As you can see, we just get the form empty in itself. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is just make sure that this isn't actually submitting emails. I don't want to send myself a lot of emails. So we're just going to console log message sent when we actually submit the form, as opposed to sending off an email as we were last time. And yeah, with that being said, we can get started. We're going to be continuing on using Tailwind Css, and the alerts that we're going to use are here from Tailwind UI. So Tailwind UI is like it's a paid component library essentially, which gives you these sort of out the box components. I think it's really great for quick prototyping. So we're just going to use this default notification here, and then we're going to have the different options. If we want it to be an error, we will drop in like this icon and make it red and stuff. So that's where we're going to get to. The first thing we need to consider is that, you know, the toasts in a regular application, you need to be able to call this toast function from anywhere in your application, and then it needs to overlay on top of, you know, your whole application. So in a normal application, you know, you might have sign-in toasts, you might have toasts where you have errors on forms, you know, you will have toast where you have a successful action, you might use them for notifications and things like that. So we're going to actually be setting up context, and then we're going to create a custom hook so that we can interact directly with, we can just use the toast function rather than, you know, actually using our context. And we're going to set up, we're going to use Reducer for managing our state and dispatching actions like adding a toast, deleting a toast, and things like that. We could just use a hook for it. However, I think if we do it this way, I think it's a good learning opportunity to learn about context API and also reducers and how you would use those within an app. So with that being said, let's get started. As I said, the first thing we need to do is actually set up a container for our toasts. So in our root directory, we're going to create a components folder. We just worked in the index last time, and we're going to create a toast container. And within the toast container, we're just going to, as usual, let me just get rid of that, export the function toast container, and this is going to return a div, and this is going to be positioned absolute above everything else in our application. So using Tailwind, we're just going to say absolute. I'm going to put it at the bottom. We could expand this, and I would encourage you to do so, and, you know, have the toast container take props on the position that you want it to happen in. However, we're just going to do it at the bottom. I'm going to make the width of this absolute container full, so I can easily center the toasts. However, you could probably, this will make it so that you can't click beyond the width of it. However, CSS isn't my strong suit. So within that, like I say, we're going to have our another container to kind of restrict the size of the toast and just center them. So I'm just going to say, you know, max width of extra large. You know, you can play around with that and do it however you want. And then we're just going to center it. And then what we want to do within here, let me just do the functionality. So I'll just say, for now, toast is going to be an empty array. And then within here, let's just do our functionality. So we'll say toasts. If we have toasts, I'm going to do toast.map. And we're going to take a toast. And we're just going to return we want to return a toast really, and we're going to move on to doing that next. So let's actually just pretend we already have it. So we're going to return a toast, and it's going to take in an ID. It's going to take, so that's actually going to be toast.id. It's going to take a key, toast.id also. It's going to be a type, and this type is going to define whether it's success or error. You can have warnings or information toast as well. Your warnings are usually yellow and information normally blue. So this is going to be toast.type. And then finally we're going to have the message, which is going to equal the toast.message. So at the moment, clearly we just have this, static array of empty toasts. However, this is going to be pulled in from our context eventually, and when this updates, then we're going to map through all of the toasts and display a toast component for each one, because we can have multiple toasts within this container. So I have already got the toast component done, so let me just make a toast.js. We are going to export default function toast like this, and that's going to return. I'm going to put it in this. So we've got two options really. So I'm just going to copy and paste the component. Like this is what I did from Tailwind UI initially, and I'll show you what this looks like. So let me get rid of this. I don't want any of this logic in here. We want to do that together. However, you can see here that we've just got this this green component. Let's actually pop in a toast here. So we'll say type is going to be success, and the message is going to be, you have submitted the form. And then we actually need to render this. Our toast is going to take the type and the message. The message, where is our message? Oh. So we've got the button to close it. And we've got the message here. So that was already there. So this is the p tag, and we've got the message. Sorry, I've copy and pasted that. I hope that makes sense. We're taking the message as a prop and we're passing it in here, so it will be displayed. And then what I want to do, I just want to say within here, if type equals success, then let's display this. And then, as you can see, if we wanted to duplicate this, we could do it so that we just pop another one of these in here. If we say type equals error, and then I'm just going to cheat and I'm going to change all these green things. I'm just going to make them red, and hopefully that will look relatively okay. So we've got our container and we've got our toast. Like I say, I don't want to type out all this code for you. I've just pulled it from the Tailwind UI library. It's available in the completed section of the GitHub if you want to just copy and paste this code. It's relatively straightforward. So let's actually include this toast container in our application, and I'm going to put the container in the highest level in our app. So I'm just going to import the toast container from our components folder, like so. And then I just want to put it alongside this component here. So if we just do this, and then I'm just going to put the toast container here, like so. Toast is not defined, so of course we need to import this toast component. Can we just auto import it? Yeah. Don't know why it does that. So let's do that. Perfect. So we have now our toast displaying. Let's see what the error looks like. So basically everything is red. I'm just going to pull up the Tailwind UI things here and grab this SVG. Again, you can grab it from the completed toast branch. So let me in toast, if it's an error, then I want this SVG to be this. And then it's just standard HTML at the moment with Tailwind UI, so I'm going to change this fill rule and the clip rule. Perfect. So that's working. Now what we need to do is make this work with our, work dynamically. So we're going to need a few things. We're going to create our context, and then this toast container is just going to, instead of displaying the static array, it's going to display from our context. And then we need a function to add a new toast, which we're going to create a custom hook to do that. And then we also need a function to delete toasts. And when we add a toast, we're going to set a timeout to also delete the toast after a certain amount of time. We don't want to have the user have to click everything all the time. So let's get started with that. So I'm going to create a context folder, and inside of that I'm going to create the toast context, and we're going to need a few things. Okay, sorry, I had to take a phone call. So we're going to need, from React, we're going to need create context and useReducer. So I'll import those, and then I'm going to actually create a context to store the state and a context to store the dispatch, and then we're going to link those into one toast provider. So let me show you what that will look like. So I'm going to create a toast state context, and we're going to create that context. And that is basically going to store an array of toasts like this. So we can just initialize it with an empty array. And then we're going to have the toast dispatch context. And we're going to create a context. And we're going to initialize that as null for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the reducer. So we're going to say toast reducer is it's going to take in the state and the action, and as usual we're going to create the switch statement, and that is going to take the action type. So then we're going to make cases. So we're going to say case for adding a toast like so, and that is going to do a certain thing. So let's have a think about what we want to do in this scenario. So if we are just adding a toast, we are taking in our state, and that is going to be all of the array of previous toasts. So essentially we want to return, in this instance, the previous state, and then we want to add in the toast. So let's do toasts. So there isn't actually any other state in this reducer, so we don't really need to return the previous state because we're going to merge in the toasts. However, if you're doing separate things, so you might toggle a menu open, and you might also toggle light or dark mode. You know, you want to, if you're toggling the menu in this case, you're going to also need to have the previous state as well. So I think it's a good habit to get into, because this will overwrite all of the state if you don't include it. It will just include the toasts, which is okay for our use case, but it's a good process to get into. So we want to merge the toasts. So we're going to say we want all of the previous toasts from the state. So we're getting the state.toasts, and then we're also going to take the action.toast. And the action, basically, we're going to send off a toast. And that is the first case. So we'll be able to add toasts to our context now. And let's do the next case, which is going to be deleting a toast. So again, this isn't too complicated. So we're going to do delete toast, like so. And what do we want to do here? So we want to take all of the previous toasts and remove one, essentially, based on its ID. So I am going to say we're going to take the updated toasts. Well, we're going to make a variable updated toasts, which is going to store the toast minus the one that we're trying to remove. And we're going to do state.toast.filter. And then we're going to, this updated toast is going to contain everything which is not got the ID that we're calling with this delete toast action. So state.toast.filter. That's going to take, I'm just going to call it the event. We can call it whatever. So we're going to say the ID is not equal to the action.id. So when we delete a toast, the action is going to contain an ID, and then this filter is going to look at all of the toasts in our state.toasts, and it's going to remove any that doesn't, it's going to keep the one, sorry, the ID doesn't match our action ID. So the ID that we pass in, it will be removed. And then once we've done that, we just want to return, as we did before, let's return the state, and then let's return our toasts as updated toasts, like so. And then when we have a switch like this, we're going to do the default, and then I'm just going to throw an error. This should only really happen in development, unhandled action, something like that. So this will only really throw if we type something wrong, and then this error will give us good indication that we've done that. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually merge these two into a provider. So I'm going to export this function, and we'll call it toast provider. This is going to take in children, and then we're going to say we want the state and the dispatch equals useReducer, and of course we're going to pass the toast reducer, and the initial state is just going to be toast, which is an empty array, like so. Now what we want to do is we want to return, and we're going to take the state context and the dispatch context, and we're going to give the state context the state value, and we're going to give the dispatch context the dispatch value. So let's do this. So we said toast state context, the value is going to be the state, like so. And then we're going to do toast dispatch context, where the value is going to be dispatch. And then inside of that, we're going to pass the children, because this is going to wrap our application. And finally, yeah, let's bring in use context, and I'll just create a couple of hooks. So if we just do export const, and then we'll say use use toast state context, and then we're going to return use context, and we're going to pass in that toast dispatch context. And then let's just actually copy that down. Use toast. Use context. That needs to be the state context, and then this one is going to be dispatch. So you can see we've now got a hook where we can take our state and our dispatch from. And sorry, this needs to have the provider on it. Dot provider and dot provider. So as you can see, we've got this toast provider, which is essentially what we're going to wrap our application with. And within that, we've got these two contexts. And then we're going to use these within our custom hook that we're going to create. So let's wrap our application with this provider. So let's just import, was that a default export? Or? Yeah. So we want toast provider from context toast provider. Right. Export function toast provider. Yeah. That's right. And then I'm just going to wrap, can't resolve, why? Toast provider. Let's it's a named export from our toast context. Can't resolve context export function toast provider. That's right. In our app. Sorry guys, I don't know why. Import from context, toast context, and we should have toast provider. Okay, strange. Toast provider. So we're going to wrap our application with that provider. Okay, perfect. So that is working now, and we want to jump into actually using this now. So let's create our hook so that we can use it. Or we can link in our container. So basically, we've created this use toast state context hook. So if we import that, use toast state context from context toast context, and then sorry, this I don't want to be in our application. I want to be in the container. So we've got the toast context. So then I want to say const, and then we can pull off toasts from what am I doing? Const equals use toast state context like so, and we no longer need this array. So if I pull up our development tools now, and I go to this, you can see we've got our context provider, which has got this array of toasts, which is empty at the moment. And then we've got this, the separate context provider, which has got our dispatch action. Cool, so we need to be able to interact with our reducer now to be able to actually add these toasts and remove the toasts. So let's make that happen in our custom hook. So if we add a hook folder, hooks folder, and I'm going to do a use toast. And this isn't really necessary. We could import, if we wanted to toast from the index page, which we do, we could import the dispatch context directly and dispatch an action every time we wanted to trigger a new toast. However, I think it's just a bit cleaner in our code when we write it this way and just use this hook. So we're going to need the useTouch dispatch context like so, because like I said, we're going to be interacting with that. And then we're going to export the function useToast. And this is a relatively simple hook. Let's first of all, let's do dispatch equals useToast dispatch context like so. So we're now able to dispatch toasts. So then let's create a function toast, because I want to, in our index, I want to be able to say, you know, something like const toast equals useToast, and then anywhere I want, I just want to be able to say toast, and then put in the message and the type like we did before. So that's what we're trying to set up now. So we'll say function toast, which is going to take a type and a message. We're going to also need to create an ID to track the toasts and delete the toasts. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create the ID. So every time the function is called, we're going to get a new ID. And there's a little way of just generating random IDs. If we say math.random and then put it to string, and then if we pass like 36, something like that, doesn't really matter. And then we're just going to take, you know, like some digits from that. I found this example online a long time ago and I've used it ever since. Okay, so that's going to give us a random ID for each of our toasts. And then what do we want to do when we call this? We want to dispatch the add toast action. So we're going to say dispatch, the type is going to be add toast, and then the second argument is just going to be our toast, which is going to take here. We're going to have a type, and this is a type of toast. So that's going to be the type. So we can just say type. It's also going to take the message, and it's also going to take the ID, like so. And then what we want to do is return this toast function, like that. So it's not going to delete itself. However, it should now be working. So just as a, let's add this and then we can talk through it. So if response status is 200, so we're just going to do the success one right now. Let's not reset or change the route. So let's just say we want to do the toast. So let's import that component. Let's do what we said we wanted to do. Toast equals useToast. So then we can now use this and we'll say toast. So you can see we need a type and a message. So let's say success. You have submitted the form. So basically, successfully submitted the form. So basically, we are sending off a response to our backend. If it comes back and the response is good, so 200, then we're going to trigger our success toast. So let's give that a try, like so. And you know, let's just take some random message. Cool. So you can see what's happening here. So we're calling this toast function, which is coming from the useToast hook. When this function is called, we're generating the ID. We are dispatching the action to add the toast, and then when this action comes in, we are creating a new toast array, which is the previous toast and the new toast. And of course, we then have our provider, which is taking the toast, this state, and this is getting passed down to the state context. And within our toast container, we're using the toast context to display our toasts. And you know, it might seem overkill to have, you know, this amount of complexity for something like a toast. However, I don't think it is, and I think it's a really good practice to do. And you know, testing this would be quite easy if you wanted to do that. Whereas if you try the simpler solutions, sometimes it's not as easy. So what do we need to do now? We need to make it so that our toasts, first of all, we can delete them, and secondly, that we they delete themselves after a certain amount of time. So let's first of all take care of the deleting themselves. So within our use toast, I'm just going to do it within this call here. So we've got the function of toast, and after we've dispatched, what I want to do is I want to set a timeout. And again, you can make this as good as you want, and put in like a delay here, which you can pass into your hook or something like that. In fact, I can show you how you do that. So we can just take a delay item in our hook, and then whenever we call our hook on the index page, we could put in like 4000 as our delay, like so, and then we can use this delay here. So whatever the delay is, we're gonna then delete the post. So if you remember, within our reducer, we have this delete toast, and let's call that then. So we're going to dispatch an action. The type is going to be delete toast, and this needs to take in, if you look at our reducer, the only thing we're needing as an action is an ID. So let's say ID is going to be just the ID that we have above. So we can just pass in the ID like this. So when the toast is created, we're going to set this timeout with that ID and then delete it. Like so. So if we now do another toast and we wait, it's going to delete itself. So that's good, that's working. And you can see if we do a few, it's doing what I mentioned with the width being full. We can't actually access anything underneath because this is positioned above. So you can see that's working now, and that's great, that's what we want. Of course, we still have this one here. So the next thing we want to be able to do is to actually delete the toast, and that is relatively simple. So let's bring in our toast. We don't need this now or this. On our toast itself, we want to be able to hit this X and delete it. Now, are we passing in the ID in our container? Yeah, so we're passing in the ID, so that's great. So now all we need to do is we're going to pull out the ID, and this button here, we're going to give it an onClick. So onClick, and what we want to do is dispatch our action to delete. So we could add the the functionality within our hook, but we're only going to do this once, and then it's done for every single toast component. So I don't think there's much point in adding it to the hook. So let's do import use toast dispatch context from, we need our context like so, and then we just want to say dispatch equals use toast dispatch context, and then we want to say down here dispatch, and the type is going to be delete toast, and we're going to pass in the ID like so, and it's working. So we can create these and delete them. So hopefully this is a good setup. You can see, like, if I create a new page called, I don't know, profile.js, and then we just export default function profile like so, and we return a div, and within that let's put a button. If we now wanted to do toast here, we'll do import use toast from hooks use toast. I will say toast equals use toast, and then let's put these ones to 1,000, and then give me a toast, and then the on click for this button, if we make this like so, so then we'll just say toast, and we can do like error, this is a pointless toast. If we now navigate to our profile page, you can see we've got lots of toast and they're deleting themselves pretty quickly. So you can see you can use this sort of anywhere within your application, and it's a really easy, simple setup, and I think it's you know, reusable. And this, we've got the custom hook to send toast like this. I think it's much easier than, you know, dispatching the type of add post each time. Now I think, of course, the next steps, if you want some homework, that's strange, those delete buttons weren't actually working there. Why is that? Because it's an error, and I only added it to the success. That'll be why. I think the other option with this page here with your toast is, instead of just, you know, rendering a totally different toast object, you could, for all of these properties, so like for the SVG, you could say, you know, like if it's a success, then render this. You could do conditional render in inline with a ternary, and you could do just multiple ternary operators, like, you know, if type is type success, so you might do something like type equals success like this, then you would, you know, render this like success SVG. If type equals error like this, then you would do your error SVG, and you could do it like that. I don't really think there's a particular difference in doing it. I just think this way is a little bit cleaner. So you can see that's working now. We've got we've still got some green on there as well, but yeah, I'm not going to worry about that too much. Oh, there it is. When we focus on something, it was green. There we go. So yeah, I think it's pretty flexible. You can add in different types of toast, so you can have your warnings and informations and things like that. And yeah, I think this is a really good solution. Extra project is what I was talking about So the first thing I would like to see is, you know, some form of animation when it enters and leaves. Maybe not leaves, but at least enters. It could, you know, like float in a little bit or come from, you know, 0 to 1 opacity. And I think that will make it a lot cleaner. Tracking the time in your set timeout, and, you know, having a progress bar so people know that it's going to disappear. That would be a cool thing to add to this. And yeah, you know, you've got a pretty reusable toast notification library, whatever you want to call it. You can basically take this toast context and your use toast hook, and, you know, wrap any application with your context and start using your, you know, of course you need to add your toast container in your toast, but, you know, that's it. Everything is reusable across multiple applications. So hope this was useful. If you enjoyed the video, please drop it a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.